Hello and welcome to Wednesday Warfare, where I review NXT and AEW Dynamite back to back and try and figure out which show won for the week. As always, like what you like, don't be a dick. Let's begin. It's Halloween Havoc time in NXT. They've got the big spooky set. The old goblin from the original sets in WCW is now on the LED screen with some robotic goblin hands on the side. Big inflatable pumpkin. I love that Shotzi Blackheart changes costumes frequently as the host of the show. I thought she did a great job as the MC of the event, by the way. Also, I liked the costumes the announcers had. Vic Joseph was Waldo, and Wade Barrett was Bad News Barrett. Brilliant. Your opening match for the North American title as Damian Priest defends against Johnny Gargano. Priest gets a cool live guitar solo entrance here, and when the lights come up, he's already in the ring. That was a pretty cool intro there. Although Gargano, not to be outdone, he comes out with a Jack Skellington jacket, and he slashes the inflatable pumpkin flat. Ooh, what a heel. Spin the wheel, make the deal, lands on Devil's Playground match, which is basically a hardcore, falls count anywhere kind of match. And because it's falls count anywhere, there'd be weapons, there'd be outside fighting, there's like fighting in the backstage area as well. At one point, Johnny gets rolled up into the deflated pumpkin on the outside, which is pretty funny. He also super kicks a mannequin that pops out of a casket. Near the end, they're fighting on their way up to the stage where the spin the wheel, make the deal wheel is. Priest looks to have things won with the Reckoning, but he's jumped from behind by a man wearing a Scream mask. I'm just going to call him the NXT Halloween Phantom for the purpose of this review. So after that, Johnny hits a tornado DDT. He hits a tombstone, like an actual literal tombstone, not the pile driver, onto Priest, and he goes flying off the stage into like a crypt made of graham crackers because it collapses so nicely. So he falls into there and Gargano pins him to win, and he is the new North American champion. I had a blast watching this match. It was a lot of fun. There was good wrestling, some crazy stuff that happened there, and also some humor as well. The story we got, the arc of Johnny slashing the pumpkin and then finding himself rolled up in it during commercial break was just a brilliant move there. And yeah, the mystery of who the attacker is. And it won't be the last time we see him tonight, but I thought it was all the parts of this match were just really fun to watch. We see Cameron Grimes backstage, very nervous about going out to the parking lot where his ride awaits him for the Haunted House of Terror match. He says the parking lot is scarier than the Bar Mitzvah Triangle. And then we see Pat McAfee enter the ring with Lorcan and Birch, the new tag team champions. Pat talks about how awesome he was at TakeOver 30 and how he proved everyone wrong, especially those internet wrestling community critics. I feel seen. He admits to paying off Ridge Holland to attack Adam Cole at TakeOver 31, and then when it came to Ridge getting hurt, he decides to go after the guy who took out his guy to become his guy with his guy. It all makes sense. Then Kyle O'Reilly comes to the ring, and then comes Pete Dunne, who we've not seen since March. He's looking real lean now as opposed to last time we saw him. He's got a chair in each hand. He hands one to Kyle, but then swerve, bro. He hits Kyle from behind with the chair, so he's the fourth man in this equation. So he and Lorcan and Birch and Pat McAfee all beat up, Kyle in the ring. This is very big telegraph for the inevitable War Games match we'll be seeing with the Undisputed Era and Pat McAfee's crew. Pat's Pack. I'm going to call it Pat's Pack from now on. So anyway, you got Pat's Pack and Undisputed Era set up for War Games. I'm very excited to see where this can go in terms of build. Cameron Grimes still very nervous as he waits for his ride to pull up to the building, and then the van does eventually pull up. There's like a spooky, maybe zombie guy riding shotgun. The side doors open up and Michael Hayes, for some reason, pops out. I can't hear a word he's saying here because between the artificial crowd noise pumped in for when he pops out, the Bad Street USA theme playing, and then the sound of the engine in the shot they have of them outside the van, you can't hear hardly anything between what Michael Hayes and what Cameron Grimes is saying. I something along the lines of I think he was saying something like the Freebirds are badasses and everything, and then Cameron goes, "Can you come with me?" I can distinctly see Michael going, "Not a chance," and then he struts off and everything. That was pretty funny, but I wish I could have heard more of that skit. Jake Atlas takes on SANTOS ESCOBAR in a non-title match up next. I love Santos' look at this match. Not just the Day of the Dead skull face paint he's got on one side of his face, but also the Rey Mysterio Halloween Havoc 97 inspired tights he's wearing. Beautiful stuff. The match itself is pretty good. Atlas showing a lot of fire in this match. Hits the cartwheel DDT, but Mendoza and Wild force a rope break essentially. In all the chaos and confusion, Mendoza headbutts Atlas on the outside while wearing a lucha mask. Maybe it was loaded, but then again, that probably also hurt Mendoza just as much as Atlas. Santos wins with legato, and that's pretty much that. I don't know how much more legs this Atlas-Santos feud has, because we saw it being set up last week in the six-man tag. This one, I don't know where they're going to go with it, where Atlas is going to go, but yeah, good match by both guys involved. A Haunted House of Terror match up next as Dexter Lumis takes on Cameron Grimes. Ooh, it's a cinematic match. I thought those died out earlier this year, but we have one more left in the chamber apparently. The whole story of this is Grimes is very nervous. He goes into this spooky, seemingly abandoned house, and there's like jump scares. There's like a zombie ref, there's like zombies in the shower, and they're all freaking out Cameron. And occasionally Lumis comes in, they scuffle, and then Cameron gets away, and then more spooky zombies chase him out of the house. He goes back into the van where he was dropped off, but Lumis is driving, so he runs out of the van and just runs away. We get a to be continued thing, and then later in the night we see Cameron like running. He runs all the way back from wherever this haunted house is. He runs back to the ringside area, but he is surrounded by more of the zombies, these creepy flexible girls hiding behind tombstones, and then more zombies, and Cameron gets into the ring. He's cornered by Dexter Lumis and the zombies. Ultimately Lumis wins with silence. I think he wins. There's no bell, but his music just plays, and then Lumis stares right into the camera and we get the end. It was very campy, these graphics. Like, my whole thought about this match, it's like a tale of two matches essentially. The first half, the cinematic stuff out on location, that sure was something. It felt more like House of Horrors, Bray Wyatt, Randy Orton than it did, say, Boneyard match. I got way more Wyatt Orton vibes than I did Taker Styles vibes here. It was just kind of silly, and I didn't like where it ended on the cliffhanger, the to be continued, but how they tied it all back up in the end with the second portion, I think made up for it. It wasn't as cheesy, and you didn't rely on the jump scares and everything. It wasn't that goofy, and it kind of made up for it, I think, in the end. And it just kind of, when you realize it's kind of like this, not even a bottle episode, it's a bottle match. Like, it almost is non-canonical, the way they have like the music, which, by the way, the Marilyn Manson song they played the first part of this thing, like, did not match the vibe of this skit at all. But anyway, from the music and the graphics, the camp old B-movie trailer text and everything, I thought it was a nice touch. So yeah, when you put the sum of the parts together, I think it's okay, but the first half of the thing was just a bit too cheesy for me and almost turned me off to it. Rhea Ripley takes on Raquel Gonzalez to see who is the biggest and or baddest lady in NXT. These two are just throwing bombs right off the bat. Impressive when Raquel catches Rhea mid-dive off the apron and power bombs her into the plexiglass chain link combo in the barricade there. More fighting, more back and forth. Like, at one point Raquel beals Rhea off the top rope. Rhea ultimately, though, counters out of the powerbomb and hits the Riptide to win the match. So I thought it was a very good match here. I thought that Raquel looked good. I thought that Rhea held her own. I thought, these two definitely brought it. And I think that kind of like what happened to Rhea Ripley, how she became more defined, had an actual character when she got a little more seasoned at NXT and NXT UK. I would love to see an evolution of Raquel's character, because right now, like, there's a lot of parts that are there, I feel, but I feel she needs like a real big kind of like spark, some kind of character change, nothing too dramatic, but something that just kind of gives her a little more flavor and kind of makes her stand out a bit more besides just her height and everything. So yeah, I think she's definitely an up and comer. Here's the segment of the night, folks. Drake Maverick is dressed up as Hollywood Hogan, and then he's approached by a guy dressed as the Giant and dressed as the Yeti, and they recreate the double bear hug. And if that wasn't enough, out comes Killian Dane, who just pops out of the curtain dressed as the Shockmaster. Everything was just all the finger kisses. It was just wonderful. And then, like, Killian and Drake are arguing here because Killian removed the thing he was supposed to trip over, and then Drake gets mad. He puts the Shockmaster helmet on and he takes a dive, and then Killian quotes the British Bulldog saying he fell on his arse. God, this is just a wonderful segment. I was just laughing so much from this. A promo backstage with Tommaso Ciampa where he says he doesn't recognize NXT anymore. And he says something that I feel has been kind of a familiar saying in promos, not just in NXT, but just like in wrestling for the last several months, where it's like, oh, these new kids, they're entitled. They want all the things. They need the brass rings and their Twitter and their glass ceilings and whatnot. And Ciampa basically says he's going to take back NXT, beginning with Velveteen Dream. Main event time, NXT Women's Championship match as Io Shirai defends against Candice LeRae. Once again, Io gets the live Poppy performance entrance this time, but you can't hear what Poppy's saying either. Spin the wheel, make the deal lands on tables, ladders, and scares, so it's TLC basically. The match begins, like, Candice pulls out this table from under the ring. There's a bag full of stuff in there. She dumps it out, and it's fake body parts. It's like probably the only real scare in a match that advertises scares multiple. They fight a lot on the outside and on the announce table. They set up some other tables on the opposite end of the ring with like some chalk outlines on them, so they'll come into play later on. Cool moment here where Io catches Candice's leg with like the legs of a chair, and it was kind of an assisted dragon screw with it. I've never seen that done before. There's a twisting neckbreaker by Candice off the apron through those tables on the outside. And there's that man again, the NXT Halloween Phantom, trying to help Candice up the ladder. But Shotzi Blackheart cuts him off and gets him out of the ring. Candice appears to have the match won, but Io dumps Candice off her ladder through another ladder bridge on the outside. So Io climbs, gets the belt, and she retains the championship to end the show. I thought this was a great main event. I thought these two just laid it out all on the line here. At the risk of sounding like a broken record or a similar broken record for my TakeOver 31 review, kind of surprised the Garganos didn't go 2-0 in this one. I thought that was kind of the vibe I was getting after, you know, Johnny won in the opener, and then when you see the Halloween Phantom show up in the main, oh, well, that's clearly going to lead up to her winning, and then it's, you know, the power couple and everything. But we didn't get that. So, you know, 1-1 is not bad, I guess. I think it was still a satisfying match to be sure. And yeah, I thought it was a very, very solid show. Dynamite opens up with Wardlow being interviewed about his chances of winning the #1 contendership tournament, but MJF interrupts and says that if Wardlow wins the tournament and the championship, then basically it means MJF is the next champion because he essentially owns Wardlow, and Wardlow looks a bit perturbed by that comment, again, planting those seeds of an inevitable breakup. Sammy Guevara shows up to confront Max, and MJF tells him, you know, note about your promos, don't. He also says he looks like a guy who sells Adderall to middle school kids, which is a pretty big burn. Sammy bows up to MJF and Max backs away. We then get our opening match. It's that semifinal match in the Eliminator tournament as Wardlow takes on Hangman Page. At one point, Wardlow slamming Page through a barricade. Hangman almost gets counted out. Some good back and forth here. Wardlow goes for the big swanton, but he misses. Page is a top rope moonsault to the outside. There's a big suplex off the top rope. Ultimately, it takes Page 2 consecutive buckshots to win here, handing Wardlow his first loss since his loss to Cody in the cage match way back in February. So it's kind of a big deal that Wardlow, a very rare loss for him here. But yeah, Page wins, advances to the finals for Full Gear, and gosh, I wonder who his opponent will be. We get a pre-tape promo from Jon Moxley where he says he will not be defending his title at Full Gear, he will be weaponizing it against Eddie Kingston. And when he makes Eddie say, I quit, then he will leave Eddie alone with his thoughts and his ego. Speaking of Kingston, he's in action against Matt Sydal up next. Kingston on the mic, basically calling Moxley a coward for not being there live. Also reminds everyone he was never eliminated from the Battle Royal. It's a pretty evenly fought match here. Kingston selling his perpetually injured leg as the match goes on. He ultimately wins with the back fist followed up by the Bulldog choke, so stealing Moxley's own finisher to win the match. But he doesn't let go after the bell rings. He makes Moxley say I quit before he lets go. Just kind of sending a message to Moxley and everything. So I thought it was a fine match, and it just keeps building up Kingston as more of this ruthless guy. So definitely accomplished what it meant to. Excalibur hosts a split-screen interview with the Young Bucks and FTR in preparation for their tag title match at Full Gear. Matt Jackson basically says, you know, their heelish actions as of late, super kicking random people hither and yon. It was them trying to create a spark and find an edge, make a change basically. And he alleges that FTR coming in and manipulating them and their friends basically was the catalyst for all that. Eventually, FTR just leave the interview because they weren't asked enough questions. And then it wraps up with the Young Bucks saying if they don't win this match at Full Gear, they will never challenge for the tag titles again, which is a pretty strong statement. It's very reminiscent of when Cody challenged Chris Jericho last year and said that he would never challenge for the world title if he lost. And I did, oh, there's no way he's going to lose. But sure enough, he did. And then they made the TNT Championship. And so I wonder if, like, the Bucks do lose this, will they create another set of tag championships just to make up for it? Because I got to win titles at some point, right? It's time for a town hall meeting where the Inner Circle gets to decide if MJF will join the Inner Circle. And Tony Schiavone and Dasha Gonzalez are the hosts. And we have these special guests asking questions. And you get, like, it's the talent, basically. We have Luchasaurus, Britt Baker, Peter Avalon, who just asked to join the group, and they laugh in his face. And then finally, Eric Bischoff makes a surprise appearance. He's listed as Eric B. I'm just wondering, where's Raheem? It's pretty funny stuff here. MJF posting, like, this shoddy-looking graph that just says, oh, look at the money they're making without me, and now with me, they're going to make a whole bunch more money. And he says that he can offer friendship to the Inner Circle, who can in turn help him become a better team player. Bischoff asks in his question, you know, can he and Jericho coexist because they're just both prima donnas and they're probably going to screw each other in the process. So MJF asks Jericho what left does he need to do to prove he is able to join the club, and Jericho says, well, you haven't beaten me. So he challenges MJF to a match at Full Gear, and if MJF MJF wins, he can join the Inner Circle. But that's not good enough for Ortiz. He and Sammy Guevara are very anti-MJF. He also says that, Santana is like, he's on the fence basically, and Jake Hager is too busy training for MMA to care. So they want to challenge MJF and Wardlow to a tag match next week. I like this segment a lot. I like the Bischoff cameo. I thought that MJF and Jericho held themselves pretty well here. I have no idea how a heel versus heel matchup between two relatively well-protected guys is going to go, especially when membership to the group is on the line. But I love that Jericho continues to put himself in this position where he tries to elevate the newer, younger talent. I sure hope the purists out there enjoyed this segment because, hey, there was no singing and dancing this time. Team Taz hypes up Will Hobbs, and Taz brings up the offer that's still on the table for Will to join the group, so they await an answer. Up next, Lumberjack match for the TNT Championship as Cody defends against Orange Cassidy in a rematch. 2 weeks ago, it went to a time limit draw in an incredible match, so how will this one fare? As with most Lumberjack matches, there's a lot of other smaller Lumberjack spots peppered in as it builds up the crescendo. My favorite is when Cody falls backwards off the apron into the arms of the best friends. They catch him, they wait a beat, then they drop him on the floor. Eventually, the Dark Order jump Cody on the outside, then the Hybrid too, and wouldn't you know, we get a big old Lumberjack brawl on the outside, and then a big superplex off the top onto everybody. Another great match here. Orange comes very close to beating Cody a couple times, but when the referee's distracted, John Silver of the Dark Order comes in, kicks Orange, and then Cody, not seeing the kick, hits the crossroads on Orange to win the match and retain. Afterward, the Lumberjack brawl continues in the ring. We've got Darby Allin looking on from the very top seats, looking very Sting-esque as he's sitting there and watching from above. The whole segment ends with the Gun Club, Billy and Austin Gunn, standing tall in the ring. So we're setting up a six-man for next week with the Dark Order versus Cody and the Guns. And that's pretty much how it ends. Yeah, I thought it was another good matchup here. I didn't expect Orange to win the title again, but he made it a fight and he made it look good, and setting up that conflict with him and John Silver for the Full Gear buy-in. And what can I say? It's a good match. Backstage, you get a face-off between the Best Friends and Kip Sabian and Miro. Kip and Miro first say that they forgive the Best Friends for destroying the arcade console a couple weeks ago. They offer a present, but it's a trap, and they beat up the Best Friends in the locker room area. My favorite part is after the trap is revealed, Kip just throws this bucket of candy at one of them and was like, "Eat the candy." Then up next, the new NWA Women's Champion Serena Deeb defends against LEYLA Hirsch. Serena, who is an AEW signed talent, beat Thunder Rosa in LA earlier this week to become the new champion. She flew from California to Florida that night to be here for the match. I'm just wondering, even though she is an AEW talent, why does the NWA Women's Championship get put in this higher pedestal than the AEW Women's Champion, who's relegated to dark? Like I said, LEYLA Hirsch is the opponent here. I don't know too much about her. I know she has wrestled for AEW in the past, but I have not seen it. I also know she made a big name for herself at the Collective a couple weeks ago in Indianapolis, so looking forward to seeing what she does here. The announcers really want you to know two things about her. She's short and she is strong. It's a really good technical matchup here. I'm really impressed by both women. Ultimately, though, Serena wins and retains with the Tequila Sunrise finisher. Yeah, that was a good match here. I'm impressed by LEYLA Hirsch, who, again, I've not seen until now. I want to see more of her work. And again, I'm happy for Serena here. But then after the match, we cut to the back where Hikaru Shida is being interviewed, and she says she wants to face the number one contender, Nyla Rose, for the title at Full Gear. This after zero build, really, on Dynamite. And I'm just wondering, again, why does the company's own champion take a back seat on their main show in favor of the other company's champion? Even if Serena is an AEW talent, the fact they're prioritizing the NWA Women's title from week to week, it seems, it just makes no sense to me. SHAWN SPEARS takes on VSK, who debuted the previous night on Dark. The match begins and the match ends. Shawn hits his C4 Death Valley driver, then very slowly, calmly, casually covers him to win the matchup. Then afterward, his attention is caught by a guy in a bull suit in the front row who's heckling him. He throws the guy in the bull suit into the ring, and it turns out it's Scorpio Sky, who's been feuding with for the last several weeks. And Scorpio hits the TKO onto Spears to end the segment, keeping that storyline going along. Main event time, Eliminator Tournament semifinal match as Kenny Omega takes on Penta El Zero M. Rey Fenix last week did beat his brother Penta to advance, but he got hurt in that match, so Penta is replacing him here. At the beginning of the match here, Kenny lifts up his shirt, who, by the way, he gets another elaborate entrance here. He lifts up his shirt to reveal he still has the AAA Mega Championship, which I forgot existed, or I forgot he had it, but he beat Penta for that belt several months ago. I love on commentary, Excalibur's like, most people want to see see Hangman Page and Kenny Omega in the finals. Like, why don't you just telegraph it a little bit more for us? I mean, this match is pretty much what you'd expect from these two guys. There's high flying, there's leg slapping, there's lots of big strikes, just leaving it all out there in the ring. Penta with a sick-looking destroyer off the top rope and onto the ramp, but Omega's able to persevere. He hits the one-winged angel to win the match and go on to the finals. So former tag partners and champs will become opponents here in the tournament finals. Page and Omega, really looking forward to that one. And the way we got here, I also enjoyed as well. Time now for me to decide which show won for the week, NXT or AEW Dynamite, and NXT wins hands down this time around. Now look, I know they can't all be Halloween Havoc shows, but can we at least keep that theme going every year going forward? Because I think they knocked it out of the park with this one. I liked the aesthetic. I think it was a very just fun show. Most of the matches played into the theme. You know, Shotzi was great as the host of the episode. I think there were some good matches and some interesting storyline developments. AEW was fine too. I think great wrestling all around across both shows, in my opinion, but NXT just brought it in a real big way with the special Halloween Havoc themed episode. I think there was a lot of expectation for that show because of the name recognition that Halloween Havoc carries, and we've seen how NXT has kind of revived like dead brands for a bit, like In Your House, like War Games, and like Halloween Havoc at this point. And I think it's just, you know, another very, very great performance here, and just the way they kind of embrace that theme, kind of like how no one else does. And I think it was just a very, very good episode of NXT this week. But let me know what you thought about AEW and NXT this week in the comment section below. And hey, let me hear your picks of who you think's under the mask as the NXT Halloween Phantom. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.